بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد back to our book تعظيم العلم, respecting or sanctifying knowledge. We studied so far the first 3 chapters, the first one being to cleanse the vessel of knowledge, which is the heart. And before you can put knowledge in, you need to make sure that your vessel that contains the knowledge is pure, right? And then we said to have your intention purely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when you're seeking knowledge. And third, we discussed having a high aspiration or enthusiasm and putting great effort into seeking knowledge. And today inshallah we'll start the 4th chapter, which is gathering your efforts towards seeking knowledge from the Qur'an and the Sunnah as the primary sources of ilm. المقعد الرابعة, the 4th chapter, صرف الهمة فيه إلى علم القرآن والسنة. إن كل علم نافع مرده إلى كلام الله وكلام رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, وباقي العلوم إما خادم لهما فيؤخذ منه ما تتحقق به الخدمة أو أجنبي عنهما فلا يضر جهل به. So he's saying that all knowledge or beneficial knowledge, especially of course we're talking about knowledge of the deen, goes back to the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the speech of His Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. All other knowledges after that are either service to the Qur'an or Sunnah, like knowledge that helps you understand the Qur'an or Sunnah better, or knowledge that is away from the Qur'an and Sunnah. And the author says, being ignorant of that knowledge that is away from the Qur'an or Sunnah, or does not work or help you to understand the Qur'an or Sunnah, is being ignorant of it is not going to hurt you or not going to harm you. Right? Being ignorant of the Qur'an and Sunnah will have a negative impact upon you. But if you're ignorant of something, knowledge that has no benefit, no relation to the Kitab Allah or Sunnah Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it's not going to harm you if you're ignorant of that. وما أحسن قول عياض الحصبي في كتابه الإلماع العلم في أصلين لا يعدهما إلا المضل عن الطريق اللاحب علم الكتاب وعلم الآثار التي قد أسندت عن تابع عن صاحب. He's saying that the ilm في الأصلين has 2 foundations. Al-asl is like, the foundation of something. Usul ad-din, the foundation of the deen, the foundation of the religion. Aslaini is what? 2. What are those foundations? 2 foundations for knowledge of the deen. The Qur'an and the Sunnah. Kitabullah wa Sunnat Rasulihi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And then إِلَّا الْمُضِلُّ عَنِ الطَّرِيقِ اللاحب. With these 2 knowledge, if you don't, anything that goes away from these 2 knowledges, away from the Qur'an or the Sunnah, it will take you far off the path. So علم الكتاب وعلم الآثار التي, knowledge of the book, meaning the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and علم الآثار. Al-athar is like the steps or the traces or the remnants in the linguistic language, but he's talking about the athar of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the ahadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, التي قد أسندت عن تابع عن صاحبي, the one that's connected to the from the tabi'in to the sahaba to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In all the books of Musnad, like Sahih al-Bukhari or Sahih Muslim, all the books of ahadith, you'll find there's a sanad in it. The sanad takes the chain of narration from the author of the book to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So who taught the author, who taught that person, from the tabi'i to the sahabi to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is the true knowledge, that you can connect yourself to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right? وقد كان هذا هو علم السلف عليهم رحمة الله ثم كثر الكلام بعدهم فيما لا ينفع فالعلم في السلف أكثر والكلام في من بعدهم أكثر. So he's saying this is how the knowledge of the Salaf was, the pious predecessors, the Kitab of Allah and the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But after them, speech had increased. الكلام بعدهم فيما لا ينفع. Unbeneficial speech increased a lot. فالعلم في السلف أكثر والكلام في من بعدهم أكثر. So if you look at the ilm of the Salaf, starting at the Prophet ﷺ, the speech is not much. It's the Qur'an and then the ahadith of the Prophet, right? But the ilm was a lot. They were the most knowledgeable of all generations. And as time spread along, the speech, unbeneficial knowledge, excess explanations increased, but knowledge decreased. Like I said, nowadays we have access to every single book of hadith basically in print on our phone that you can take anywhere with you, right? But how much knowledge do we have compared to the ilm of the Salaf, right? There's so many books that you can fill, thousands and thousands of rooms, of Islamic knowledge, right? Written works and everything. But how much of that knowledge is in practice? Whereas at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, there was hardly any books whatsoever except the Book of Allah, the Qur'an, and that was written on parchment, So the speech they had was not much. It was only the Book of Allah and the ahadith of the Prophet ﷺ, and sometimes some of the Sahaba clarifying things. As generations passed, then the Tabi'een would have to clarify more and add more to it. And then the Tabi'een would have to add even more. And then Islam was spreading, so there had to be translations. And then they started bringing in ilm al-kalam, like the theology from other cultures. And then they had to refute that theology. And then it's like philosophy came in. And then it's just so much extra that wasn't part of the deen that became a distraction and brought people's knowledge down. So al-kalam was akthar, but the ilm was aqal. With the Salaf, the ilm was akthar and the kalam was aqal, the opposite. قال حماد بن زيد رحمه الله قلت لأيوب السختياني العلم يوم أكثر أو فيما تقدم قال الكلام اليوم أكثر والعلم فيما تقدم أكثر. He asked this Imam Hamid or Hammad ibn Zayd, he asked his teacher or his companion Ayub al-Sakhtiyani, he said, is knowledge more today or for those that preceded us? And the Imam responded, al-kalamu al-yawm akthar, speech today is more, but the ilm was more before us, right? And this is in line with what the Sahaba radiallahu anhu and the Prophet ﷺ taught us, and saying that the ilm will dissipate with the taking of the ulama. As time passes along, the ilm will get less and less, right? That's why Ibn Mas'ud, he said there will not come a time except that the time after will be more evil. Some scholars say, he explained it saying, some of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, there will not be a time except the time after it will be more evil. Ibn Mas'ud, he commented saying this is with the taking of knowledge, right? So that's one of the signs of the Day of Judgment, how knowledge will dissipate, And like I said, we have access to so many books, so many writings, basically all the hadith, yet the knowledge is so little. The practice of knowledge is so little. There's so many other distractions. So many people spend 20 years or more to try to get a simple degree, right? In the past, they would spend maybe 6 to 7 years. Talab al-ilm, seeking knowledge, is a lifetime endeavor, of course, but to attain a decent amount of knowledge for a person to become a scholar back in the day, it took them a short period of time, because they weren't distracted with all these other types of unbeneficial knowledge out there. And they focused on the Book of Allah and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and they had their intentions, high and good and pure intentions, and Allah gave them barakah in their ilm. Nowadays, a person might have, I've witnessed personally, a PhD in Islamic studies, and studied basically for 20 years to get that degree, and he doesn't know some of the basic masail of fiqh or aqidah, right? He might have a specific knowledge. He spent 4 to 6 years writing about one specific chapter of fiqh, that's it. But if you ask him about anything else, he doesn't really have any understanding of it, and that's not beneficial knowledge. The next chapter, he'll get into how the scholars used to seek knowledge correctly, which was studying the smaller text and memorizing the text, and then going to the bigger text and texts that are agreed upon by the ummah. First and foremost, the Book of Allah and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. All ilm, all beneficial ilm, it goes back to the Kitab Allah, the Book of Allah. And this is the statement, like Ibn Hajar, he said, وَأَنَّ فِي فَتْحِ الْبَارِ, describing the knowledge, he said that all knowledge goes back to the Book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وأن باقي العلوم إما الآلة لفهمهما وهي ضالة المطلوبة وإما أجنبي عنهما وهي دارة مغلوبة. So all knowledge goes back to the Book of Allah or the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and every other knowledge will either be helping you and attain that, or will be something that is away from it and misguide you. Right? So the key for talab al-ilm is to go to the sources, which is the Book of Allah and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, وَنَزَّلْنَا عَلَيْكَ الْكِتَابَ تِبْيَانًا لِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ, that we have revealed in the Book of Allah, in the Qur'an, a clarification for everything. Right? So the scholars used to say that everything you need is in the Qur'an or in the Wahyain. وَنَزَّلْنَا عَلَيْكَ الْكِتَابَ تِبْيَانًا لِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ. People nowadays unfortunately have left the importance of the Qur'an. They put it as a secondary issue, whereas the Sahaba radiallahu anhum and the Prophet ﷺ taught us that's the first and primary source of all knowledge. Right? And there is the news of the previous ummahs, the news of how to live in this dunya, and the news of what's going to come on Yawm al-Qiyamah. Right? So the Book of Allah should be your highest aspiration, memorizing it, understanding it, living according to it. And then the Prophet ﷺ's words, that's also wahi from Allah, his words in the deen. That's the second point of revelation that one person or any Muslim should try, aspire to understand and attain. Right? If you have these foundations pure and you really understand them, everything else in the deen will be simple. But even if you memorize all the books of Mustalah Hadith and Usul al-Fiqh and Ilm al-Kalam and all these type of Ulum al-Ala, and you don't have the asas, the usul, you won't have beneficial knowledge. So make that your goals, to aspire to understand the Book of Allah and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And later he'll tell you also guidelines in terms of studying fiqh or hadith and the matun that are beneficial, that are agreed upon by the scholars of the previous generations. It's not rocket science. There's a methodology to seeking knowledge that's been started from the time of the Prophet ﷺ up to this day. And if you stick to that methodology, you'll get great knowledge in a shorter time. And if you go away from that methodology, you might spend much time and not that much benefit. So take where they took from and follow their path, the path of the Salaf, the path of the righteous before us. Right? They gave us a way and they showed us the guidelines to how to achieve knowledge. And if you're sincere and you follow these guidelines, inshallah, Allah will give you the barakah and give you the ilm. Right? You're not doing it for the sake of the dunya, you're not doing it to show off to anybody. You're seeking knowledge purely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that's a form of worship, a form of ibadah, to get close to Allah. And all the beneficial knowledge that you get, inshallah, your niyyah is to bring you close to Allah, to teach yourself, to teach your family, to teach others, to save people from the hellfire, to save yourself from the hellfire, to save your family from the hellfire, to bring goodness to mankind. Right? That's our goals, inshallah, from seeking knowledge. This is the main point of this chapter. It's a short chapter, and I know people are still traveling, so we'll keep it short, inshallah, today. And pray Maghrib. If you have any questions, I'll come back after Maghrib for a short time. Also, if you want to go over any of the Arabic, any questions on that, inshallah, I'll come back for a couple minutes after Maghrib. Subhanakallah bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Jazakumullah khairan wa zadakumullah hirsan.